Gerald Ford is the only president in American history that nobody ever voted for. Not as president, not as vice president either. He inherited a country that just watched his president resign in disgrace, and in less than 2.5 years he did something rare. He made it feel normal to trust the White House again. History has judged him a lot more kindly than the voters did at the time. This is the full story of a genuinely decent man handed the hardest possible job with almost no time to prepare for it. Before any of that, Ford was a genuinely accomplished guy in his own right. He was a star center on the University of Michigan football team, part of 2 national championship teams, good enough they turned down 2 NFL offers from the Packers and the Lions to go to law school instead. During World War II, he served in the Navy in the Pacific, including on a ship that survived a massive typhoon that nearly sank. He came home, practiced law, and got into local politics almost by accident, running for Congress in 1948 mostly because he thought his predecessor was too isolationist. He was known in Washington on both sides of the aisle as almost universally well-liked, a rare thing, even then. His close friend in Congress for decades was Tip O'Neill, a Democrat who'd go on to become Speaker of the House. They disagreed on nearly everything policy-wise and stayed genuinely close anyway. Ford spent 25 years in Congress representing Michigan, working his way up to House Minority Leader. He had no plans to be president by his own account. His ambition was to be Speaker of the House and then retire. Then, in October 1973, Vice President Spiro Agnew resigned in disgrace, something completely unrelated to Watergate. Nixon needed a new VP, someone Congress would actually confirm. He picked Ford. 10 months later, Nixon resigned too. Ford was sworn in as president, a man who'd never run on a national ticket, appointed to only one office and inheriting the other by resignation. 0 votes, twice. 1 month into office, Ford made the defining decision of the presidency. He gave Nixon a full unconditional pardon, before any criminal charges were even filed. The backlash was immediate and brutal. His approval rating dropped over 20 points in a single week. Reporters and even his own staff suspected a secret deal, pardon for resignation, arranged in advance. So Ford did something almost no president has ever done. He voluntarily testified before Congress himself, the first sitting president to testify before a House committee since Lincoln, to directly and personally deny any deal ever existed. In his own words, addressing the country when he first took office,
"Our long national nightmare is over."
The pardon was his attempt to actually make that true, to stop the country from spending years reliving Watergate through a drawn-out trial and let everyone, including himself, move forward. It cost him politically, probably more than anything else he did in office. He knew the risk going in. He made the call anyway because he believed the country needed to heal more than he needed a second term. Alongside the pardon, Ford made another decision that gets far less attention. He offered conditional clemency to thousands of Vietnam draft dodgers and military deserters, letting many of them return home if they completed a period of public service. It was controversial from every direction, but it was a real deliberate attempt to start healing a country split apart by the war, not just Watergate. On the economic side, Ford inherited real trouble. Inflation over 12%, a recession, and an oil crisis still fresh from a few years earlier. His response was a public campaign called WIN, Whip Inflation Now, asking ordinary Americans to voluntarily cut spending. It's remembered today as one of the less effective policies of the era. Inflation barely moved, and critics saw it more as a symbolic than substantive. But by 1976, the economy was genuinely recovering. Inflation was down significantly, and unemployment was falling too, progress that rarely gets credited to him. In 1975, New York City nearly went bankrupt and asked the federal government for a bailout. Ford initially refused, and a famous newspaper headline captured the moment. Ford told Citi, "Drop dead." He never actually said those words, and he later did approve federal loans that helped the city recover, a middle ground response that got far less attention than the headline did. In May 1975, just weeks after the fall of Saigon, Cambodian forces seized an American merchant ship, the SS Viguez, in international waters and captured its crew. Ford ordered a military rescue operation. Marines stormed an island where the crew was believed to be held. It turned out that the crew had already been released separately. The Marines met unexpectedly fierce resistance anyway. 41 American service members died to an operation to save the crew that was already free. It was a costly, controversial mission, but politically it worked. Ford approval's numbers jumped. Senator Barry Goldwater called it proof Americans still had, in his word, balls. A blunt reaction to a country still reeling from Vietnam. In August 1975, Ford signed the Helsinki Accords alongside 34 other nations, an agreement meant to ease Cold War tensions during the Soviet Union, formally recognizing European borders in exchange for human rights commitments. It was controversial at home. Critics said it legitimized Soviet control over Eastern Europe, but those human rights provisions later became real tools that dissidents behind the Iron Curtain actually used against their own governments. That same year, Ford survived 2 separate assassination attempts within 17 days of each other. One where the gun simply failed to fire, another where a bystander grabbed the shooter's arm mid-trigger pull. I've covered them both full on this channel if you want the details. I'll put a link in the bio. What's genuinely remarkable is how he handled it afterward. He refused to let it change his public schedule or make him more guarded with people. Aides who worked with him said he insisted on keeping the same open, accessible style he'd always had, even after 2 people tried to take his own life in the space of 3 weeks. By 1976, Ford was running for a term of his own, against Jimmy Carter, a peanut farmer and Georgia governor, positioning himself as a Washington outsider in the wake of Watergate. Ford lost, narrowly, one of the closest elections in modern history. Historians widely agree the pardon was the biggest factor. Even so, on the campaign trail, Carter and Ford developed a real mutual respect, and after both left office, they became genuinely close friends. Carter later said that Ford was one of his best friends, and the two collaborated for decades afterward on public projects together. History has been kinder to Ford than 1976 voters were. In 2001, he received the Profile for Courage Award specifically for the pardon decision. The same choice that cost him the White House later, recognized as an act of genuine political courage. He lived till 93, the longest-lived president in American history at the time of his death, and by most accounts remained the same unpretentious, approachable person he'd always been, famously still toasting his own English muffins in the White House kitchen. Gerald Ford never wanted to be president. He got the job through a series of scandals that had nothing to do with him, made the least popular decision a month in, survived 2 assassination attempts without ever changing who he was, and lost re-election over a choice he never walked back or apologized for. Along the way, he also helped a divided country start healing, kept his door open to political opponents who became genuine friends, and never let the job change who he fundamentally was, a decent person. There's something genuinely admirable in that. A politician who prioritized principle over popularity in the middle of the most cynical stretch of American political history most people alive have ever seen. If you want more deep dives like this, subscribe. I break down the political history most people only half remember every week. Thanks for watching.